Pleasure to introduce Asger Törnquist from Copenhagen, who is going to talk on the subject close to my heart, namely mad families.
Well, thank you very, very much. I don't know, is this on? Yeah, okay. Then I'll try not to yell into it, but let me know if I'm speaking too loud or too softly. Yeah, it's a great pleasure to speak here this week, and I thank you for the invitation. But the pleasure is, of course, heightened because we're celebrating Mathias. I realize that the celebrations really are on Thursday, as I understand it. I think we should start them today and continue all week. Well, so Adrian said it, that this talk is connected to something that he cares about. That's good. I apologize to those of you, and there are probably many of you who've heard me speak about these things before. I take this opportunity to talk about mad families and definability again, you might say, for two reasons. First of all, because we're celebrating Adrian. Secondly, because I'd also like to clear up what I can and cannot prove about various kinds of mad families. There's some confusion about this because I made some claims that I could prove more than I could, and some things collapsed. And on the other hand, I can prove some things of interest, and therefore I have something to say. I hope. So let me get going. I was told this was an isomorphic copy of the Fields Institute in Toronto, so the boards are not exactly identical, but we'll make do with the. So it's useful to have the following conventions in this talk. That let me know if I'm writing big enough. An A.D. almost disjoint family is an infinite set A, which is a subset of the infinite subsets of omega. Such that it's almost disjoint, such that for all x and y in A, if x is not equal to y, then the intersection of x and y is finite. Mad, maximal almost disjoint, maximal under inclusion, that I don't want to write down. I'm among friends. So, and what else? I have a notational convention. Oh, wow, this comes out this way. I have a notational convention that I keep on using, that if I have an element which is an element of, let's say, omega to the less than omega cross omega to the less than omega, then I'll use the following convention, that then S is equal to the pair S lower star, comma, S upper star. In other words, S lower star is the first component, S upper star is the second component. This is practical in this talk to use this kind of notation. So, what is this talk about? Well, it starts out with a theorem that I think everyone here knows, which is due to Adrian, and I think it's sort of circa 1967. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. A bit later, what? 69. Okay. So that that no analytic almost disjoint family is mad. There are no analytic maximal almost disjoint families. As you see from my definition here, I ruled out that they could be finite. So Okay, so this is from the well-known Happy Families paper, which many of you know, and okay, does this move up or down? Oh, see here it's better than the Fields Institute because at the Fields Institute you have to use all your force to move the blackboard. So another theorem, also due to Mathias, and it must be then same year, I'm guessing, circa 1969, that from a Marlowe cardinal we get a model of ZF plus there are no mad families. There does not exist a mad family. So this begets the following. Well, you have to use some force. The following question. In Solovay's model, so this is the model that you all know and love, that of model of ZF, constructed by Solovay. In Solovay's model, are there any mad families? And the theorem today that I'll talk about is the following, is that the answer to this question is no. There are no mad families in Solovay's model. So, before I go along, the thing I need to clear up in this talk, it's somewhat embarrassing for me, but one has to admit that mistakes were made. There are other kinds of mad families around that people consider. One of them is this notion of an eventually different family of functions from omega to omega. I thought that an idea very close to the proof of this theorem would also solve that problem about that there are no analytic maximal eventually different families of functions from omega to omega. And I managed to go around and believing this for a very, very long time until I discovered there's a flaw in a lemma that destroyed everything and destroyed a lot of other things. What it did not destroy is it did not destroy the proof of this. One of the things that the failure of this lemma also destroyed was that I thought I'd discovered a very, very interesting connection to a variant of the open coloring axiom and these types of theorems. But without that lemma, none of that can work. So now you know what I can and cannot prove about mad families. And I'm happy to tell you more about what I cannot prove if you catch me outside at some point, because these questions still interest me a lot, and I hope other people want to work on them. Well, how does this come about, this theorem? Getting back on track with what I can do. How does this come about? Well, it comes about because I sat down and I thought to myself, this theorem here, well, where did it go? Up there. The first one I listed, that there are no analytic mad families. There are no analytic mad families. This theorem falls out as a consequence of the analysis carried out in the Happy Families paper. But I thought to myself, can I, by examining the tree structure representing an analytic, almost disjoint family, can I come up with some sort of, kind of ad hoc, very basic sort of proof that doesn't use any technology? So I was playing around with this for a very long time, and eventually something worked out, and then that formed the basis of, it turns out that the idea for this new proof of Mathias' theorem, then that idea can sort of be pushed further and you can get it to work in Solovay's model.
Sorry, Asger.
Yes?
True. The second theory.
Yes.
It's a Solovay model from a malloc.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay, so you just get it from making excess.
Yes, this is what I get. So the first step is a lemma that takes more effort to write down than to prove. So it says the following, but we'll use it again and again, so I'll write it down. Let A be a family of subsets of omega, and suppose there is a sequence AI of, well, indexed by omega of subsets of omega such that, and I warned you it's more if we're writing it down than proving it, so such that every x in our family A is almost contained in the union of finitely many of the AI. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that for all n and omega, if I take omega without the union of the first n plus 1 of the AIs, then that is always infinite. Then what happens is then there is Z which is an infinite subset of omega such that for all x in A, x intersected with Z is finite. So I'm not going to write down the proof. The proof is shorter than the lemma. The proof you can find yourself, and you'll notice that this only uses very little. It certainly goes through in ZF. So now I'm going to start focusing on. So though I want to speak about this theorem here, I'll say for the next 15 minutes, I'll certainly be focusing on the case of reproving or giving a different style of proof of Mathias' theorem that there are no analytic math families, because it motivates everything about what is done in the Solovay model. So here's the key definition. And you'll see that now that I'm starting to really work towards this new proof of the theorem up there, you'll see later on how that's like, it's the steps of the proof, proving this analytic theorem for analytic math families or non-existence theorem. You'll see how the steps of the proof over in the Solovay model are just, following. There'll be isomorphic statements, or there'll be sort of appropriate similar statements there. So this is an important definition. So let T be a tree on 2 cross omega, and let beta be either finite or ordinal or omega itself. A sequence TJI, how do I want to write it? Yeah, a sequence TJI in this T, the tree on 2 cross omega, where I is an omega and J is just 0, 1, is a diagonal sequence in T of length beta if a bunch of things happen. 1, the length of C0 I is the same as the length of C1 I. Maybe I should, before I'm writing this down, I'll draw a little picture that so you can follow along and see that that my picture fits what I'm writing down. So here's the picture. Here's T0, 0. Remember that trees grow down. So go down here, and then T0, 1, and then T1, 1. And we go out again, and then T2, 0, and then T2, 1. And on this side here, we'll continue doing stuff and so on. But these guys here, I don't define any extensions of those. So 2. So the first one just reflects that the heights here look the same. 2, Ti1 is a subset of, well, Ti1 is extended by Tj, yeah, Tji plus 1 for all I and for all j in 0, 1, for all I and omega. So that's again reflected on that on this side of things we continue branching out, but I haven't said anything here. Okay, so C0I and C1I are incompatible in the first coordinate. So just like in the perfect set theorem for analytic sets, you want to have splitting in the first coordinate.
First or last?
Sorry?
In the first or last?
First. No. Oh. The first coordinate. It's like proving the perfect set theorem for analytic sets. You want to have splitting in the first coordinate. So I drew this very pretty picture to give myself less room for writing the rest. So for all S and T in T with S extending Ti0 and extending T1, T0I, and T extending T1I, we have, well, I want to write down the following, but formally that's going to, look weird and wrong, but I'll explain why it should make sense after all, that the first coordinate of S intersect with the first coordinate of T. I don't really mean that. I mean the sets, the underlying sets, represented as an indicator function or characteristic functions by S star and T star. That this is equal to T0I star intersected with T1I star. So here, I don't mean what I write. I really don't mean what I write. But I mean that for the sets, and this is what I'm going to do a lot, that it's nice to talk about sequences of, in 0, 1, but think about them as representing sets. So here we're thinking about S star as representing a certain finite set, T star represents a certain finite set, and so forth, because it's a characteristic function. And there, what I mean here is that the intersection between the sets represented by these sequences is the same finite set as represented as the intersection of the sets represented by these sequences. In other words, what's going on here in my picture is that if I'm continuing down this side or this side here, and then I will see no further intersections in the first coordinate. The sets that, the trees, that will go into the family that are being represented by infinite branches. From here on, those infinite branches, you will see no more intersections.
Are these indices I supposed to be drawn from B, sir? You wrote at the top.
Oh, yeah, yes, thank you. Yes, I drawn from beta. Thank you. And then finally, no. I have to erase something. Oh. Finally, 5. If I take the projection of the tree, which is the tree where I'll explain the notation in a second. It's just the standard notation here. So T0I. So the projection of the infinite branches through this tree here. Well, that's not an empty set for I and beta, where following the usual convention that I found in Keger's book, this here is just a set of those S in T such that S is compatible with Ti 0. Okay, so this is the difference.
You've got a couple of restrictions where I range is only up to beta, but the actual sequence has i's going all the way up to omega. Before number one, top line on that blackboard.
On the lower board, first line.
Oh, sorry. That's probably means beta.
Stop.
They may stop, they may be finite. So if beta is finite, it's a finite diagonal sequence.
Projection is to the first coordinate.
Yeah. Projections to the first coordinate. Exactly. So here's what we're going to do. Well, there's a lemma, and how much time is it I have? Is it 5 hours? 6 hours. Okay. So here's the lemma.
I think you have 27 minutes.
He's set with the cold voice. Lemma, suppose.
Asger, you are not extending his T0i's at all later.
No, the T0 sort of just sit on the side and that's
What
it.
is compatible with T0i, only its predecessor?
No, the tree made it.
No, there's a tree. There's a whole tree of things that, of course, lots of things in the tree are extending these, but I'm not going to define any special extensions of these. This is just living on the side.
Sorry, so I'm just saying that there is just a branch going through P0?
No, because I'm saying, but every time I picked out these, I'm saying something important about the extensions of on this side and this side that I will see no further intersection
You
points.
could do
I know,
some
this is
shading
fine,
around
but
the
I'm talking
tree to
about
show
size.
that there are other stuff.
Oh yeah, so and so forth. So what I'm saying is that this other stuff, you know, the first coordinate of that.
They are disjoint.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
don't see it. But 5.
Yes.
5 says that there is something.
Oh yeah, it's saying that there's some. Oh yeah. Oh, now I understand. Yes, it's saying that there is an infinite branch below each of these. Yes. I guess I don't need to say that for the ones because, well, unless it's a finite, unless the beta is finite. I think. Yeah. Okay, so suppose T is a tree on a tree on 2 cross omega such that PT, the projections of the infinite branches to the first coordinate is an uncountable almost disjoint family. Then C admits an infinite diagonal sequence. There are various ways you could do this. You could take the analysis of a tree done in the perfect set theorem for an analytic set and turn that into a proof, or you can simply do a direct derivative argument where you're saying that, look, if you only had finite diagonal sequences, this will give you a way of decomposing this into countably many countable pieces. So I won't show you this. The paper's online, so go and look it up. But if you know the perfect set theorem for almost disjoint, well, so for analytic sets, then you'll find the proof yourself. So now, here's what we're going to use this for. We're going to use this for doing. Oh, did I write? I wrote down the easy lemma that we'll use, but well, proof of what? Maybe I should start going to the gym before I give talks. But anyhow, we'll call this theorem 1. Good. Theorem 2. Oh, 1. Sorry. Okay, so fix T, a tree on 2 cross omega, such that PT is an uncountable A.D. family. Now I trust that I can make this assumption because I'm sure all of you can, in half a second, remember that there are no countably infinite man families. That's routine. we will find an ordinal alpha star less than omega 1, and a bunch of other things. Well, A will find for each alpha less than or equal to alpha star a tree T alpha contained in T. We'll find for each alpha less than alpha star, I'll find an infinite diagonal sequence. Let's call it T I J alpha in T alpha. Now you all remember these theorems, so I'll allow myself to rub them down. This is the one we're proving. So. And we'll find sets AI alpha, subset of omega for each alpha less than or equal to alpha star, and I is in omega, such that they satisfy the following conditions. One, well, T0 is just going to be T. So the argument I'm presenting is some kind of derivative argument. Such that T0 is just equal to T2. AI alpha is, let me put it this way. It's the n in omega such that there exists a pair xy in the infinite branches through, well, this is one way of putting it. It's maybe not the most compact, but there exists xy in the infinite branches through T alpha, but the part of T alpha compatible with Ti 0 alpha. So there exists such that n is an x. So if you're looking back to this picture over here, remember that the picture is guaranteeing that things that extend this guy here and things that extend this guy here, well, you will see no extra intersection points. So as we're branching along here and taking all the possible things, really, all the potential things that will be an element of some branch here, you know, the thing I'm taking here will see no further intersection points with this set at all here, right? So the AI alpha and the A alpha I and the A alpha I plus 1 sitting down here somewhere, you'll see no intersection points beyond where the split off is. So 3 for alpha less than alpha star, we'll let T alpha plus 1 be the set of those T in T alpha such that there exists an X in the projection of T alpha T. So in that tree that of the things compatible with this T, here there exists some X in the infinite branches through that, such that for all K and for all alpha 0 through alpha K minus 1 less than alpha, let me try to write that a little bit better. Write it on the next line, less than alpha. And for all I0, I K minus 1 in omega, it's not the case that X star is almost covered by the union of these finitely many A alpha i's, where alpha is among these finitely many and I is among these. So X star is not almost contained in the union of try that again, union over J less than or equal to K, well, let's make it less than K, of the A alpha J Ij. So in other words, let's put it differently, what is allowed to survive at this derivative stage? What is allowed to survive? Well, the T's where there is an infinite extension which is not almost covered by some A alpha I that we've already defined.
Sorry.
There's
Yeah,
no
go
start
ahead.
above X, right?
Sorry?
There's no start. It's the
I mean,
second
are you trying to
coordinate.
be? You already introduced this notation.
Oh, sorry. No.
So just
The
X.
star was supposed to be. Go ahead. Sorry about that. Sorry. Yeah, that's confusing. So I'm only allowing to, to keep from T alpha the T that still has an infinite extension, which is not almost covered by some A alpha I that have already been defined. So that's 3. 4, for lambda less than or equal to alpha star, a limit let T lambda be equal to just the intersection of all the T alpha less than lambda. And finally 5, T alpha star admits no infinite diagonal sequence. Okay, so as long as I can possibly keep finding an infinite diagonal sequence, I'll take one, I'll define these sets from the diagonal sequence, and I'll keep going and I'll keep going, and every time I keep going, as long as I can find this thing, note that the elements of the diagonal sequence will not, for T alpha, will not survive to the T alpha plus 1 stage, right? Because if you look at an extension of one of the Ti alpha, that is completely covered by AI alpha. So the things in the diagonal sequence of T alpha do not survive to T alpha plus 1. So as long as I can keep choosing a diagonal sequence, something is happening. These T alphas are getting smaller. So because it's countable, this will stop. And where it stops is my alpha star. Alpha star here has nothing to do with the other definition. Alpha is an ordinal. So that's it. That's the definition. So let AI, I and omega, enumerate the set consisting of all the AI alpha less than alpha star, along with all the stuff in all the elements, all the x, such that x is in the projection of T alpha. Try that again. X is in the projection of T alpha star. So, this, again, indicator functions and sets are identified here. So, this is a countable set. It had better be, otherwise I couldn't enumerate it. But it's a countably infinite set. And why? First of all, we will get somewhere. We will not just end. Alpha star is not 0. Because I said that T is a tree on 2 cross omega such that the projection of T is an uncountable, almost disjoint family. Well, the lemma, which I wrote down. I had a lemma which said exactly that if I have a T which represents an uncountable, almost disjoint family, then there is an infinite diagonal sequence.
The lemma's there.
Sorry?
The lemma's there.
Oh, the lemma's there. Thank you.
The choice of T, if you look at the top 4,
Yeah.
that's what gives you the projection.
Yep. Thank you. Yes. T admits it. So alpha star is not 0. So we get off the ground here. Now, this set here couldn't be uncountable either, right? Because then there'd be an infinite diagonal sequence. And I said we continue until we can't pick one anymore. This alpha star is the first time where we can't pick an infinite diagonal sequence. So this is a countable set. And now what I need to check is that this countable set satisfies the requirements of the lemma that I did rub down. That was the first lemma that said that if I had a family of subsets of omega and a sequence of sets AI indexed by omega, such that every element of that family was covered, almost covered by finitely many of the AIs, and that the union of finitely many AIs was always had an infinite complement, then that family would not be a maximal almost disjoint family. So the time is racing along, so those who want to know about this Solovay model proof are going to have to catch me later, maybe over a glass of wine. Okay, so maybe without me drinking wine.
How do we know that the paths from the second one are each one is covered by finitely many, or not covered by finitely many of the A's?
What?
Oh, that's from clause 3.
Yep. Good. So, I enumerate these, and then we need to verify the conditions of the lemma I rubbed down. I'm sorry I rubbed it down, but the first part of that is we need to see that every element of our almost disjoint family, so PT, is almost covered by finitely many AIs, right? So this is condition 1 of the lemma that's rubbed down. So let X be in the projection of T. Well, if x happens to be in the projection of the in T of T alpha star, well, then it's done. Because then it's covered by itself, which was added to this family. So fine, done. So suppose x is not in T alpha star, then let so x is in PT, so it's in PT0, so then let alpha less than or equal to alpha star be least such that x is it's not in here. Sorry. So suppose it's not in here. Be least such that x is not in C alpha. Not in C alpha. Well, then let x comma y be in C, so that this y witness that x is really a member of this family, since xy is not in the branches through T alpha, there is beta less than alpha. Is beta less than alpha such that, well, something is thrown out, right? So let's see. So that x and some n, such that x n, y n is in T beta, but x n y n is not in T beta plus 1. Uh-oh. T beta plus 1. Well, why is that? Well, how can something be thrown out?
Well, I think you mean xy is not in.
It's not in
PT alpha.
Where did I
Y
write?
minus 3. xy is
xy.
not in.
I think you said.
Oh, believe such that x is not in PT alpha.
Next line.
Okay.
xy is not.
Oh, since is not doing well with the negation. Sorry. So it's not there, then it has to be thrown out, right? But if that is, I think, if that's tossed out at some point, well, then that means that it's almost covered by finitely many of the previous things. So, well, the first coordinate is almost covered by finitely many things. So x is almost covered by finitely many of the previously defined things. So that takes care of the first part. And the second part, I promised you, and I've just seen the unpleasant sign. So we also have to check that these these AIs that I've defined, that if I take the union of finitely many of those, then their complement is still infinite. But this is exactly why I work with these infinite diagonal sequences. Because if you took finitely many of these AIs, well, they're really just finitely many of the AI alphas that I find, plus maybe finitely many elements from the almost disjoint family. Now take the biggest alpha amongst those finitely many that occur, which is less than alpha star in my finite collection. And then I know that going far enough out in my diagonal sequence, I can now get to a point where everything going off to that side is actually intersects everything else that was previously coming from that diagonal sequence only up to a certain fixed level. So, but I also know that thing far enough out that it has an infinite branch through it. There's an infinite element there. Now that infinite element is not almost covered by the AI alphas, the finitely many I'm currently looking at. And that element is not covered either by finitely many of these x's because it's an almost disjoint family. So the second condition, I'm waving my hands because of time, the second condition is also satisfied. And so without writing that down, please ask me if you want to see the details of it, we get that 2 is also okay. But then the lemma that was so easy to prove that the proof was shorter than the statement of the lemma implies that there is a set which intersects, which is an infinite subset of omega that intersects everything in the family defined by this tree, everything in PC, finitely. So it wasn't maximal. So I've hopefully have 2 minutes to just close this down and say I'm sorry I thought I could magically get through saying something about the analytic case in 15 minutes. That was impossible. If you want to hear more about Solovay's model, just corner me and we can talk about it. Now, there were sort of the only thing maybe I should say about it is that what happens in the Solovay model case is that you have a forcing poset in L or in LA, you know, and every subset of omega, or every family of subsets of omega is Solovay or L or LA, real A. And now you use the forcing poset in a name for real which belongs to the almost disjoint family, sort of to mimic what the tree does for us. So you do something very, very similar, but instead of a tree, you have a forcing poset and a name for an element of the almost disjoint family. And essentially similar steps will take you through. Okay, I'm going to round off this by making a little remark. People have asked me, why are you interested in this? Why are you doing this? Well, the first answer I can think of is that I think it's fun. I think it's interesting and fun to think about this. I think many of us feel that the Happy Families paper is both a very elegant paper, and then it's a very influential paper, and it's fun mathematics to me. You don't have to think so, I think it is. And so people have asked me, why are you interested in this? You had a good thing going with C-style algebras and set theory, and you got a lot of grant money doing this. And they said, I'm still interested in C-style algebras and set theory, but we're at a stage where it's much, much harder to prove new results, and it's a longer push. And there are other things that are fun too. But let me end by I found a paper by you, a little, essay really, it's called, What is McLean Missing? And I think it has the perfect answer, because I don't expect anyone in this room to say, why are you interested in this? Because you're interested in combinatorics and the reals and so forth. But people from other fields might understand. Well, here's what it says at the very end of the first page. It says the following, this is what you wrote, Adrian. Is it desirable to press mathematicians all to think the same way? I say not. If you take someone who wishes to become a set theorist and force him to do, say, algebraic topology, what you get is not a topologist, but a neurotic. That's what you said. Uniformity is not desirable, and an attempt to attain it by, say, manipulating funding agencies will have unhealthy consequences. And I really think that it's very important for us in set theory to heed those words and say that, we work on the things that interest us and inspire us, and it's good mathematics. And I couldn't have phrased that better than you did. So, well, thank you.
Questions? Short questions.
Could you indicate which of these lemmas did not work?
Well,
Indicating the other proof.
so you have what I had was I had a modified a different concept of a diagonal sequence which worked in the eventually different case, because you have to you see in the almost disjoint case you can just go far enough out and add a new element, but for a function, eventually different functions, you have to define that function everywhere. It has to be an everywhere defined function. So you have to make sure that you have the opportunity to keep on adding something from a certain step on to your function. And it's not just good enough to be able to add in infinitely many places, add something new to it. And so this is where, in order to make sure there's room for doing this, you need well, I guess the simple lemma needs a stronger version that it allows room to. Yes, thank you. But at any rate, so my alternative derivative proof had a nasty error in it that I completely overlooked, and so suddenly there wasn't room to define a total function.
I thank the speaker.